dividing vetiver. Well, you would pick up the vetiver and you give it a little trim. See, like that. And you pull it apart. Like so. And you give it a little bit of wash. See a little bit of water here. And divide it up accordingly into the smaller pieces. And then, after you've done it like that, you've done your bunch, and you move on to the next one. I find when there's a lot of stuff on it, it's best to bang it against something to get the dirt off. Excuse me. So a lot of it, that mud and dirt's off. Give it a little bit of rinse in the water so that you've got the roots stripped of most of the dirt. And then pull it initially apart. Go in with the scissors to trim the roots, because the vetiver grows on new root systems, so the old roots aren't as important as you'd think. And also, if you're going to put it in a hole or into a container to grow on, you want it to be as narrow as possible. You don't want the roots to be hanging outside the surface of the soil. You want them all covered in as much as the ones that you've left. And the question of division is really up to you through most practice. It does pull apart pretty well, and you can judge. Now, here's a good example. These are fine. Right, so this one here, I'd like to trim down a little bit more. So make it a little bit easier to get in. This one is one I wouldn't plant out for growing, but I'd bring on in a little container so that after a month or so it would be usable. But that's not a very good root system. In other circumstances, I wouldn't bother with it. We move on again. Here's another bench of retta. Lump of dirt on it. Go bang. Got rid of the dirt. Give it a wash. Give it a trim. Get a short back and sides, sir. Here we go. Short back and sides. Nice trim off there. Pull it apart. Yes. Why I like washing them is to get any weed seeds off them. Because we'll wash them again before we actually plant them or distribute them. Is to get any weed seeds off them. And also any other contaminants that may be problematical. Here we are, another haircut for you, sir. All right, it's all in practice, really. Practice not so much in cutting, but in planting. Once you know how to plant the thing, you also get an idea of how you want to cut it and trim it and separate it for the purposes of reproduction. Pretty good. That one, see that one there's a little bit fit for my liking. So I'll trim that off there. There you go. Excellent. There we go. That's how we do it. Not so fine. But you want, see, when you plant the vetiver, say this is your soil, you want to be able to poke it into your hole so that you can get it into that sort of depth, right? And if your hole is small, we use a auger to make our holes for planting. You want to be able to pop it in the hole so that no seeds are hanging out the top that would cause the roots to dry out, okay? And also you want to be able to pop it in there, have enough room to fill it in afterwards so that there's no particular problems limiting its initial growth. In the bottom so that they don't dry out. You don't want to, I mean, vetiver's a bit of a zombie plant. It can come back to life seemingly after its supposed death, but you don't want to overdo it. You want to encourage as much growth as you can. So here's a problem one here. I think that's too thick. So I get my scissors out, trim it down to a little slimmer one so that it'll more easily go in the hole, okay? Here's another good example. You'll note also that the length here, I like cutting it. This is about 40 centimetres in length, right, from here to here, okay? When we're posting vetiver, we'll shorten it a bit so we can put it in the post bag. But what we find for a lot of people who use our plants, that for planting purposes and bending down, you want as long a stem as possible because you don't have to go down as far to plant the thing. So if we take an example of this one, give the trim off. And I'll talk about an example of planting. Do a separation. And this is as good as any. Do a little bit of a trim on this one. Okay, here's the surface of the thing, and you want to, rather than bend all the way down, you've got this distance. You've got this distance where you can poke the thing in, right? Pop it in the hole, then move on to the next one. And if you want to, you just fold the hole in on itself with the stamp of the foot, or as we do, we usually throw in a little bit of cow manure on top of it, and then squeeze it in. But we find it's best to do it with an auger attached to a electric drill. Much better than putting a crowbar into the soil, which can wreck your hand after the first 100 or 200 or 300 vetiver or 400 vetiver you planted. I've done it, so I don't recommend the activity for too long. Another good one. When it comes to the quality of the vetiver division, I like a division with as many roots as possible attached to the crown. So this one doesn't give me as much confidence as these two would, okay? These two also have a consolidated green stem. Can you see that? These ones here, consolidated green stem, where this is obviously a younger stem with probably less excuses for vigor in that it hasn't had that much development underneath. Here we go. Here we go. Another one. Oh, look at that. Look. So, I mean, this is a good example of that sort of. I mean, with these roots, our roots probably went down 40 centimetres or 50 centimetres before we harvested, and we've cut them off. So in the digging up with the spade. I'll show you that one sometime in another video, how we dig up vetiver. And this is a good little piece of a division here. There, see? Nice little division. Really two lovely pieces here. And you can see how the vetiver comes on, right? Okay. So what happens when vetiver is put in the ground, it seemingly dies off, right? But what it does is that in its regrowth, it puts in new shoots and new roots. So that's what you wait for. So once you plant it in the ground, you think, oh, they've all died. No, they haven't. They're girding themselves to the future and slowly putting down new roots and developing new shoots. And that's what they will look like in the first instance. Once that happens, you're away. So usually when you planted out vetiver, allow at least 6 weeks in normal warm conditions, not in the chilly cold, because vetiver stops growing at around about 5 degrees centigrade. When I say stop growing, it goes idle. Before you say, oh, my plants aren't working. Well, they are, it's just that you can't see it. It's not like planting a normal seedling like a carrot or a cabbage, where you plant it in, and if it doesn't take, it dies straight away. Vetiver's not like that. It takes some time to accommodate itself to its new home and then get going. And then it waits on basically the weather for its convenience in terms of wetness, the amount of rain you're going to get, and the amount of moisture and the amount of heat, as it is a tropical, subtropical plant, which does survive in cold conditions. So you can see here, this plant has been brought on in the nursery situation and has grown fresh roots, and it's got a new tiller coming on, a new green tiller. That's what we want, okay? So when it comes to distribution, we'll probably trim the roots back a little bit, but it's certainly, we know that the plant's very much alive and very really ready to get going in the field situation. Oh, better roots consolidation there, see? New roots on the plants, just like the plants we just divided, but consolidated root system. And these, in a matter of a short time in cold conditions, like this time of year in the subtropics, Vetiver still keeps on powering away. And you can see here, it hasn't put up any new green shoots, but there is that greening, no, there is a green new shoot there actually. For example, you can see the problem with, I had been talking about the reason for trimming the roots. You can see here where the roots have hung over the top of the soil or the container. It doesn't do it much good. You want the roots to go directly down. So the mistake I made, I should have trimmed these older roots off. Oh, another good one. See this?